On July 26, 2025, what began as a quiet, serene evening along California's breathtaking Monterey Bay would soon be remembered for a heartbreaking tragedy. The gentle sound of waves and the soft glow of the moon over Point Pinos painted a picture of peace, but beneath the calm, fate was about to take a devastating turn. That night, a twin-engine Beechcraft B-95 B-55, carrying 3 people, suddenly crashed into the cold, dark waters of the Pacific, just 300 yards off the rugged coast of Point Pinos. The aircraft's final moments were witnessed by a handful of startled onlookers, who saw the plane descend rapidly before disappearing into the waves. The crash occurred just before 11 p.m., shattering the stillness of the night. Sirens pierced the air as emergency crews rushed to the scene, their lights flickering across the water. The peaceful community was left in disbelief, struggling to comprehend the sudden loss and the chaos that followed. The victims, Steve Clatterbuck, 60, of Salinas, James Vincent, 36, and Jamie Tabscott, 44, both of Monterey, were deeply loved by their families and friends. In the days that followed, the community gathered by the shore, holding candlelight vigils and sharing memories, united in grief and remembrance. Their sudden and tragic loss brought the reality of the disaster painfully close to home, serving as a stark reminder of life's unpredictability and fragility. The shoreline became a place of reflection, where people left flowers, tributes, and messages of love, seeking comfort in one another. Now, as the community mourns, the focus has shifted to supporting the grieving families and honoring the lives that were lost that night. Monterey Bay stands together, determined to remember, heal, and offer hope in the face of tragedy. The ill-fated flight began late in the evening, between 10 and 11 p.m., as the Beechcraft prepared for departure from San Carlos Airport. The runway lights shimmered in the darkness, casting long shadows as the small aircraft taxied into position, ready for its journey into the night. The plane lifted off and headed south, tracing the rugged California coastline. Below, the cliffs and ocean faded into blackness, while the city lights slowly disappeared behind the aircraft. For the next 25 minutes, the Beechcraft B-95 B-55 cruised smoothly through the night sky. The hum of the engines was steady, and the cockpit instruments glowed softly, guiding the pilot onward. At 10:36 p.m., the aircraft's last transponder signal was recorded near Monterey. After that, all contact was lost, and the plane vanished from radar screens, leaving only questions in its wake. What happened next remains a mystery. Somewhere over the dark ocean, the Beechcraft disappeared, its fate unknown as the hours ticked by and search efforts began. Investigators are now working tirelessly to reconstruct the plane's final moments, piecing together every available clue to understand what led to the tragedy. Night flights over open water are notoriously challenging for pilots. With no visual references outside, they must rely entirely on their instruments to maintain orientation and safety. Such conditions demand exceptional skill, focus, and trust in the aircraft's systems. Even a small error or unexpected event can quickly escalate into a crisis. The investigation will examine every aspect: flight data, weather conditions that night, and the pilot's experience, to uncover what went wrong and why the flight ended so abruptly. Search and rescue teams scoured the coastline and ocean, hoping for answers. The wreckage, when found, offered only fragments of the story. What began as a routine journey ended in heartbreak, leaving families and friends devastated, and a community in mourning. Now, as the investigation continues, the community gathers to remember those lost and to search for answers that may bring them peace. On a quiet night near Point Pinos, residents were startled by the unmistakable sound of a plane circling low overhead. The familiar peace of the coastal neighborhood was suddenly interrupted as people stepped outside their homes, drawn by the unusual noise echoing above the ocean. Some gathered on porches or along the shoreline, peering into the darkness, searching for the source of the disturbance. The aircraft's engines roared through the night, shattering the stillness and sending a ripple of unease through the community. The deep mechanical hum seemed to linger, growing louder as the plane circled overhead, its presence impossible to ignore. Then, after about 30 tense seconds, a sudden jarring thump echoed across the water. The noise was unmistakable, a crash. In an instant, the engine's roar was replaced by an eerie, unsettling quiet, broken only by the sound of waves and the distant shouts of alarmed witnesses. Soon, pieces of debris began to wash ashore, illuminated by flashlights and the glow of emergency lights. The grim sight confirmed the community's worst fears. Something terrible had happened just offshore. Within minutes, witnesses dialed emergency services, their urgent calls setting off a rapid response. The Coast Guard, along with local police and fire departments, quickly mobilized, launching a massive search and rescue operation along the darkened coastline. Crews braved the cold and darkness, using powerful spotlights and advanced thermal imaging cameras to scan the choppy waters. Every available resource was deployed, as rescuers combed the shoreline and searched the ocean for any sign of survivors. The discovery of more debris floating in the surf helped pinpoint the crash site, allowing search teams to focus their efforts and coordinate their response more effectively. As the night wore on, anxious community members gathered by the shore, watching and waiting. Families huddled together, hoping for a miracle, while first responders worked tirelessly under the harsh glare of floodlights, determined to bring answers to a community shaken by tragedy. The search spanned 13 hours and 346 miles, covering 100 square miles of ocean. Coast Guard and local teams worked tirelessly, but hope faded as hours passed. Early Sunday morning, a fireboat recovered the first victim, confirming the crash was fatal. Dive teams later found the plane's fuselage and the remaining 2 victims. The recovery brought closure to the search, but marked the start of mourning for families and the community. First responders' dedication ensured loved ones were brought home. With recovery complete, the NTSB began investigating the cause of the crash. Experts will examine the wreckage, maintenance records, pilot qualifications, and weather conditions. The process is thorough and may take months, but aims to prevent future tragedies. Meanwhile, the families of Steve, James, and Jamie grieve privately, supported by an outpouring of community compassion. Their gratitude for first responders' efforts highlights Monterey's unity in crisis. As the investigation continues, the memory of those lost endures. The community stands together, honoring lives cut short and seeking answers.